Welcome. After many months of planning, the 32nd Forum on Tolerance has finally arrived. This is the 32nd time we've met together for the sole purpose of trying to mold all of us into becoming more humane. My name is Professor Sheldon Brown, outgoing chairman of the Tolerance Committee and Forums. It is my honor to introduce the president of our college, Dr. Patricia Gentili. In the first 100 days of her presidency, she's been working hard to assess our college needs. She has been providing dynamic leadership to propel North Shore Community College to new heights in its second 50 years of serving the educational needs of our college community. Here is Dr. Gentili to greet you.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. First of all, welcome, and thank you so much for coming to our 32nd Forum on Tolerance. I am just delighted to be here. When I was thinking about this opportunity to learn and to grow, I reflected on the word tolerance. And basically what that word means is it's the ability or the willingness to tolerate something, right? In particular, the existence of opinions or behavior that you don't necessarily agree with. But that form of the word, I think, is fairly submissive and passive, just sitting back and accepting. I think we do a whole lot more than that in the past 31 previous forums on tolerance. I think what we've done here at North Shore Community College and what I believe we are so proud about in terms of these forums is that we've redefined tolerance as an active, learned, and shared action to educate, to promote, and to embrace diversity of opinion. And to find in that diversity a unity that makes us the country, the unique experiment of democracy it was meant to be hundreds of years ago. And so that's why this forum is so important. Today, the focus is going to be on caring for our Earth, the planet we share with millions of other human beings and animals. We'll talk about climate change, a very real phenomenon caused by human action. You'll examine your own day-to-day actions and their impact on our environment. And you'll learn about and reflect on actions that you, as an individual, can take to protect and sustain our environment for our own sake and for the sake of our children, our grandchildren, and the future inhabitants of our wonderful Earth. Today's forum is chaired by Dr. Lori Carlson, Professor of English. So I'd like Dr. Carlson to stand. There she is. Let's give her a hand. Thank you so much for your hard work to bring this to fruition. It's also supported by many other North Shore Community College employees, including our green team. So would our green team folks please stand? Come on. And there is one very special person who has been involved in each and every one of the forums over the past 32 years who deserves a special round of applause, and that's Dr. Sheldon Brown. Dr. Brown, please stand. It's my pleasure to introduce to you the retired and third president of North Shore Community College, Dr. Wayne Burton, who will speak about Dr. Brown's impact on our community. Dr. Burton?
good to be back. I'm reminded of this room, this gymnasium, which was turned into a public forum about the second years of my presidency. But what really I like about this room is, I'm not sure if Pat knows this or not, but hanging in this room are the flags of the countries of origin of students at North Shore Community College. And when we did this project with the students, we ran out of room for all the flags. This college stands for diversity. And no one stood for diversity more than Dr. Sheldon Brown. Now, I almost didn't make it this morning when I was told to come down and speak about someone named Brown, because you folks in Massachusetts have sent Scott after me up to New Hampshire, and it's very annoying. But fortunately, I met with Jean Shaheen last week, and she is a dear friend and neighbor of mine, and she said, well, the Constitution guarantees each state 2 senators, but it doesn't guarantee each senator 2 states. And that's something that Mr. Brown will find out. He will also find out that he will become the first person to lose a Senate race in 2 states to 2 women. And so that makes us very proud also. As See, I can say these things now that I'm not president anymore. Not that I wasn't a little partisan when I was here. It's the legacy of these forums is amazing. I mean, I embrace the environment movement in part because of these forums. As a town councilor now in Durham, New Hampshire, we have the greenest town in the state. We have PVC on our fire station, our hockey rink, a brand new library. We are working with UNH on a solar field to power the town. This afternoon, we will launch a new bus service in non-petroleum transportation to take cars off the road. The commitment I made when I signed the President's Agreement many years ago, I've tried to keep, but I was always reminded by the people in this room of that promise to be as responsible as possible to the environment. When I think back on the forums, though, some amazing events. This forum has always revealed the truth about the persecution of people who've been marginalized. And I most distinctly remember, for example, the program on the Armenian genocide, which was incredibly powerful. The forum on bullying, that was really powerful. The forum on homophobia, that was incredibly powerful. And I think for me personally, the forum on autism, when Shonda Schilling was here to do the presentation, was particularly meaningful. And all of these programs came about because of the vision and the wisdom, the activism of one person, Dr. Sheldon Brown. Dr. Brown, without his leadership, taking the initiative 36 years ago, Sheldon? Something like that. It's hard to remember when you get to our age, I know, but it's been an amazing experience, and every year I look forward to this, and I noticed that next fall's forum is going to be on homelessness, which is an extremely important issue. And I think I was very proud to come back. Paul Frederick is here. I always call him Doctor because he always gave me the best advice I could get around here. Would you recognize Paul Frederick, please, who's here this morning also? At this time, it's a very special moment for me to be here to recognize Sheldon Brown. I'll never forget the program we did on religion in Islam. And we got a really nasty letter from someone in the region questioning why we would have such a forum. And I remember talking to Sheldon and writing back, this is a forum that educates. It doesn't advocate, it educates people, because ignorance is what causes violence. And having these forums on that topic was extremely important. At this time, Sheldon, would you please come up? At this time, it's my great privilege and honor to present the Certificate of Recognition to Professor Sheldon Brown for 18 years of dedication for 32 forums on tolerance, understanding one another by sharing human experiences. Dr. Brown.
I'd like to leave you with a Talmudic expression that I learned. I learned a great deal from my teachers. I learned more from my colleagues, and I learned best from my students. Thank you very much.
It's also a pleasure for me to be here this morning. It's like returning home. What we would like to do now, and there's a saying that goes, behind every good man is a good woman. And I can tell you, because I have been at virtually every forum, Sheldon's wife always was here supporting not only Sheldon's work, but the forum in North Shore Community College. So we want to recognize Sheldon's wife and present her with some flowers. And also it gives me a great deal of pleasure to present Sheldon with really a small gift of our appreciation for his continued leadership. When you stick with something for almost 20 years, it's really amazing. I always admired folks who would really not only create an idea, create a task, create something that would be very good, but to stick with it through thick and thin. And while Sheldon would be the first person to acknowledge the help he's gotten from many people, most of whom are here in the room today, and many people over the years, to make these forums so enlightening for the community and our college. You know, every band needs a leader, and it gives me a great deal of pleasure to recognize Sheldon's leadership, his guidance of an event that has really been a hallmark of North Shore Community College, not once a year, but twice every year, once in the fall, once in the spring. So let me just present Sheldon with something that I think he will like, because if you know Sheldon, he has very nice ties. It probably can't compete with the tie that his wife has created, because she creates many of his. But anyway, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to present this small gift as a token of our appreciation, Dr. Sheldon Brown. Sheldon?
Sheldon, look in the bag. Look in the bag.
What could be more appropriate than to have a tie with the forums on tolerance?
Good morning, everyone. And I'm here supposedly to explain you why we are celebrating a forum on tolerance on planet Earth. And I actually think the main reason is because Dr. Sheldon Brown, thank you very much for all the work again. Second, so I wanna, you might be wondering, like, how does the title for this forum relates to tolerance? And actually, I wanna tell you, like, the main protagonist of the idea for the forum is a student from the college. And that student is Leanne McGuinness. And I want Leanne to come here and to help me to explain, what is the reason why we are celebrating this forum today. Is this. Okay, Leanne, I want you to tell me, how do you come up with the idea for this forum and what's your motives?
I Again, my name's Leanne, and I'm a student at North Shore Community College. And first off, I was motivated, to join the Forum on Tolerance Committee when Professor Sheldon had sparked an interest. And I wanted to share that because there's no coincidence, like he's retiring this year, and he has impacted my life completely. It was on many faiths, and I first had got involved when I saw that forum September of 2012. And I asked him, like, how do I get involved, and how do I do this, and how do I participate? And he just said, just show up to the meeting. And then we had ideas, and it's been interesting to be involved with the professors and get their end and see their hard work and all the work that they do and what they contribute to the school and the forum. And we were trying to throw ideas around, and April 22nd was actually Earth Day. And I thought, what a better way than to start with this. And I was motivated by taking Introduction to Sociology with Professor Marin. And it was a paperless class. And I said, a paperless class, what do you mean? Like, how are you going to see that I'm doing my homework? How are you going to know that I'm learning? And he said, there's this program we use, and it's on Angel. And I came back as an adult learner. I had been out of high school for 15 years, and I didn't know how to operate a computer. I didn't know how to use the software or the systems. And I was very intimidated, and I was very scared. And I remember saying to him, like, how am I going to do this? And it started with going to the center, and I went to the tutoring center, and they taught me how to operate a computer, and they taught me how to use the software, and they taught me how to use Angel, and it really started with that.
And then you went and bought a computer.
I bought a computer.
And from that moment, start buying all the textbooks electronically.
Right. So then they told me that, like, you can rent online. You can rent an electronic, and it's cheaper. And actually, I have last semester, I saved $131.50 purchasing electronic copies to course titles, which some of them naturally with my sciences and labs, like I buy the hard copies. But this semester, I saved $64.15. And like for a single parent with 2 children and going to school and working, like it's a lot. And I'm going to share on my work aspect. And like he was very intrigued by this because the student that came here that didn't know how to turn on a computer and was told like I had to do a paperless green curriculum course, ended up getting a job, right? And I'm going to tell you what my job entitles. It sparked the awareness for the ability in the computer world and technology, right? And I'm able to run and operate equipment, including recording and transferring MP3s, CD duplication, and I run data communication programs. Like, and this was what had sparked all this.
So what Leanne is telling us here, that being good for the environment not only help you to save money, but can get you jobs, like good jobs.
Also, in his class, we had watched a movie called Home, and I'm not sure if anyone had seen in the cafeteria on Tuesday, the Environmental Club and a bunch of North Shore Community College students had pitched this movie, and it's basically showing how the world, not just Lynn, not just North Shore, not just New England, not just the United States, but how the entire world is impacted on not only the fact of our ignorance, but of how we can become aware and how we can contribute to society and to the environment and the little things that we can do, just the little things of like running water and like not allowing it to run, like turning off the lights. It's like the basic things at home. And it was quite interesting what that movie had impacted. And then we had a table that showed like the ecological footprint. And that's what we're going to get into right now.
Yes, before getting into the ecological footprint, actually first of all, she's suggesting like what we are doing here, or what we intend to do here, is to raise awareness about how humans relate to the natural environment. What are the implications of that relationship on us, on humans again, and in the natural environment? But more important, how what we do here in the United States, the way we use resources, have implications, as Leanne suggested, all around the world. So that's one of the things we want to understand today, like how our way to relate to the natural environment has implications for the environment, for us, and for other people in other places. So talking about how we relate to the environment and how raising awareness, there's three things that I want to share with you today. So recently there's two polls, one from the Pew Research Center and a second one from a Gallup poll that this talks or shows how Americans care for the environment or how they are concerned about global climate change or global warming. So this first poll is the one from the Pew Research Center. And when Americans are asked, from a long list of 20 things, what do you think are the things the president of the Congress should focus on? So dealing with global warming came second to the last, only with 29% of people in this country concerning about global warming. The second one, I think is a little more disconcerting for me, is asking Americans again, how do you care? How do you think global warming or global climate change is a great deal? So now this last poll shows that actually Americans are caring less. From a peak of 41% in 2008, so now only 34% of Americans think that global warming is a great deal. And I find this actually problematic. More than that, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which is the maximum authority in the world in assessment to global climate change. Scientists from all countries in the world, from the most prestigious research institutions get together, and periodically, like every 5 years, they produce a report about the assessment of global climate change. So the last report, they were saying that they were 90% certain that the climate system is unequivocal. So now they are saying there's not any uncertainty. This is happening. The climate system, the warming of the climate system is real. So there's not any doubt about that. The second one, which also, there's a lot of misleading information, is, there's even some people believing that global warming is not happening. So, like humans don't contribute to global warming. So this is the second outcome of this report. We humans actually influence global warming. And the third one, that in order, the situation, they found actually that the situation is more critical than what they initially believed. So that means that in order, if we continue to produce gas emissions the way we are doing, so that puts everyone like in a very kind of dangerous situation, and that implies a huge challenging for policies to cut gas emissions. So they conclude that actually countries all around the world should set up policies. I don't know if you know, but in the Congress of the US, since 2006, there's a bill about global climate change. You wonder why that bill hasn't gone anywhere. I hope that this report is going to have any meaning there. So now, Lian was suggesting, because the question here is, what can we do right now in this moment to have or to raise awareness about the way we relate to the natural environment? And Lian suggests, we did this in the classroom, let's do it here. Is that right? So, how many of you have heard of the ecological footprint before? Please raise your hand. Okay, a good number of you. Among of you, some of my students, very good. What is the ecological footprint? In simple words, is how much resources one individual, but also like one country, one city, use from the planet Earth. So this is the world ecological footprint. So this shows that the way we are using resources now, we are stretching the planet in a way that looks like we are using 1.5 planet. Do we have an extra half planet? No, is that right? Probably you have heard that there's a list of people wanting to go to Mars in just like one-way trip. I don't know how many of you will be able to get into that list or have that trip, if that's possible. So if we keep doing things like business as usual, what is going to happen in the next 30 years? We are going to need 2 planets. Are we going to have a second planet? Do you think that half of the population of the world is going to be able to fly to Mars? No, that's not going to happen. So what this suggests is we need to change behaviors in the way we relate to the natural environment to create a sustainable relationship. So now, Lian, I think it's time for you to go out there and help me to find someone who want to help us calculating the ecological footprint here.
I'm a student at North Shore.
So we're just going to ask you a few questions. He's going to set up the profile. And this is, if anyone's familiar, this is what we did outside of the cafeteria on Tuesday. And you got an Earth cupcake. And it was green and it was blue and it looked like the Earth. So it was really nice.
Okay, Nicole, first of all, I appreciate very much that you are doing this. And I want you not to feel that, don't feel bad as a result of what you are going to find here. You are going to realize that actually you are not alone. Okay, so you are here, you are going to help us like doing the exercise, but it's not about you. So, and we appreciate very much what you are doing. So Nicole, here we have a chance to portray you the way you are, but even you can maybe change your hairstyle if you want. This is Nicole. You like this hairstyle, Nicole? It's
I do.
kind of.
It's nice.
Your skin color. Your shirt is kind of gray. We can keep it like that.
Okay.
And you have red pants.
That's
A
good.
nice combination.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, here is Nicole. So the first question, Nicole, the first question is about how much meat do you eat? So here is, how often do you eat animal-based food or produce? Every day, almost every day?
I would say every once in a while, not too much.
Not too much?
Right.
Oh. Okay, let's leave it there. Not to exaggerate, but does that look like your Saturday breakfast or Sunday breakfast?
Yes, that looks good. I can't see it.
Okay, here is your butcher store. Next, the next question is, how much of the food you eat is produced in the backyard of your house? Or is all bringing from far away?
Well, my dad gardens sometimes, but not that much, so I'm going to say very little.
Almost all of it?
No, like closer
Three-thirds.
to none of it.
Two-thirds.
Closer to none of it. Back to the left. The other.
No, here the meaning is most of her food doesn't come
Oh,
from the
yeah.
backyard.
It doesn't. No,
Yeah, it comes from far away.
Yeah.
So we need to move it to the truck. Okay, here is the truck with your food. Now the question is about trash. On average, how much trash do you produce? Like a little more, because everything is packed, wrapped. I bet you produce a lot of trash, is that right?
That is right.
I don't want to exaggerate with here, let's have it here.
That's good.
Okay, very good, thank you. Here is your trash. So now, the type of house where you live in, a freestanding house without running water, or a freestanding house with running water, or a multi-story building.
A multi-story building.
Okay. Here is your beautiful building. Now, a very important question. Do you have electricity there?
Yes, I do.
Of course. Who in this country don't have electricity? But do you know that almost half of the people in the world don't have electricity in their houses? Okay. Here is the grid bringing the power. How many people live in your apartment?
4, including me.
Okay. So the size of the apartment, so you can tell me like the number of rooms, so I can calculate here like the square feet. How many rooms?
Probably all together, like there's 3 bedrooms and then a living room and a kitchen.
So like
5. Yeah.
Okay. So it's like around, I guess, here, where it is?
Yeah.
Okay, very good, thank you. Now, how far do you travel by car every week? Do you drive around? Do you have a car?
I do, yeah.
Okay. How many miles on average every week? A lot?
Yeah.
Like around 200 miles?
Probably 200.
Okay. Do you have a motorcycle?
I don't.
Oh, you don't.
I don't. My dad does.
So
Her father
how-
has one.
Huh?
Her father has one.
Do you use it?
I've taken rides, but I don't drive.
No, let's leave it like that.
Okay.
When we calculate her father, we will include the motorcycle. How efficient is your car? Like in terms of gas mileage? Like meaning how many miles per gallon? What type of car is that one?
What type of car do I have?
Yeah.
A Ford Escape. It's pretty good.
It's a
It's like a
SUV?
small SUV, yeah.
But SUVs I'm gonna leave it there.
Okay.
Okay, here is your beautiful car. Then, how often do you drive with somebody else? Or you drive most of the time by yourself?
I'm usually with somebody else.
Okay, so you're good, often. So we are gonna leave it there.
Okay.
Then, how much public transportation do you use? Probably not, because you drive a lot, is that right?
That is right.
How many hours do you fly every year? Do you fly?
Not that often, no.
But you would like to fly, no?
I would like to.
Let's leave it like you would like to fly at least 4 hours every year.
That's good.
You know,
I
let's say
wouldn't
to
hate
go to
fly.
Florida or somewhere warm.
Okay, that's good.
Here is your plane.
All right. Nice.
We send you for a holiday. Okay, Nicole, here we have the result of your ecological footprint. So here it says, if everyone lived like you, we will need 6.2 Earths to provide for resources. Is that shocking you?
Yes. That's not good.
Okay. you know, actually, Nicole, don't feel guilty, but I want actually you to feel guilty and everyone to feel super mega guilty because we don't have 6 planets. We only had one. And one important thing here, if we hear, you know, if everyone, because actually the average for Nicole to feel good, the average ecological footprint for Americans is 7 planets. So you are even doing a little better than the average. But what does it mean? That people in other places of the world are not having access to the resources because we are consuming them here. That's a big issue. But let me just tell you what we could do here. So you could take action. Because here, one thing we want to learn is actually what we could do, what each of us could do in order to help the planet. So there are here some suggestions. You can pledge to eat less meat. For instance, you can become vegetarian. Do you want to be a vegetarian? No. Okay. You can reduce energy by using less energy. You're not taking shorter showers with cold water. Do you want to do that? No cold water.
Probably not, but I could try.
Okay, so this, I got into application here because it's asking me to log in. I don't know why, because this is not my account. But anyway, here it shows that if everyone take a little step, saving a little energy, that actually has a huge impact on your ecological footprint. Nicole, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Nicole, actually have a little present for you. So you come here. What is this? A shopping bag. Nobody here from now on should bring plastic bags home. Thank you very much.
Janot Mendler de Suarez is a visit and research fellow with Boston University's Pardee Center for the Study of Long-Range Future, and consults as a technical advisor with the Red Crescent Climate Center. She was a 2012 IDEAS Boston speaker and spent 11 years establishing, this is correct, the GEF, IW Learn, the Global Environmental Facilities International Waters Knowledge Sharing Program involving 182 countries. Currently specializing in experimental learning games, design and facilitation training. Janot has worked with Inter Ale, right? World Food Program, Rockefeller Foundation, the World Bank, Red Cross, and Red Climate Center. Recent publications include Ensuring Survival, Ocean, Climate, and Security, Games for a New Climate, Experiencing the Complexity of Future Risks. And if anyone's interested, I have her email contact, so now I'm going to introduce Janot, and I am very, very honored to introduce her. I got to speak with her before. She has a lot of knowledge and a lot of wisdom on how to sustain Earth. Thank you.
Can we get this? This doesn't seem to be. Okay, great. So, I'm going to talk to you about Games for a New Climate. So I've come with a little bag of tricks. I can't help but thanking the speakers who've gone before me and introduced this forum. I just want to add one little interesting fun fact for you. As Americans, this planet, if every single person were an American, does anybody know what the population of the planet is right now? Anybody? Thank you. This planet could support, at 2013 levels of production and consumption of resources, about 1.1 billion Americans. By contrast, it could support about 5 billion Mexicans, about 7 billion Chinese, or about 22 billion Bangladeshis. Just to give us pause. All right. What are games for a new climate? Games are a way to share in experiencing complexity. We need to better understand our individual and our shared responsibilities in facing future risks. I work with Boston University's Party Center for the Study of the Longer Range Future. That means anything earlier than about 30 years out we're not concerned with. So climate change is a very important issue. Today, we're already aware of impacts, the new IPCC report that was mentioned, but the longer term impacts are much more daunting. We formed a task force of humanitarian practitioners, climate scientists, development researchers, and game designers to analyze this from a rigorous kind of multidisciplinary perspective. And guess what? We're going to play a game today, and the winners are going to get a copy of our publication. There are a few on the back also for you that looks at how games are used in many different contexts around the world. And we're going to play a game together, all of you, this morning. So, let me go forward here. I want to start with a special report that was put out by this intergovernmental panel on climate change a couple of years ago. Some of you already know that climate change is fairly complex. So, what do we already know about future climate-related risks? Well, to set the stage, I want to share with you, I'd like you to ponder for a moment this headline. Today's climate extremes will be tomorrow's normal weather. Tomorrow's climate extremes will stretch our imagination and our capacity to cope as never before. We use games to place ourselves in scenarios that are real, but also to help us to stretch our imagination so that we can think ahead, so that we can prepare. This special report is worth a read, at least the summary for policymakers, which is the simplified version. It goes straight to the ethical core of how climate change is affecting humanity. It highlights the economic, social, demographic, cultural, institutional, governance, and environmental factors that explain differences in vulnerability to exposure. For example, remember Katrina? There was a reason. It was not by accident, it was actually by design that poor African Americans were hit particularly hard. During the 2003 and 2006 heat waves that hit Europe, thousands and thousands of people died. The elderly were particularly vulnerable, not by accident, again, because of the structure of our society. Worldwide, women suffer bigger disaster impacts than men precisely because of their daily activities and their position in society. How many people think that we have equality between men and women in our society? Okay, I don't see any hands. All right, so unless ever more money, assets, and people are to be washed away with the coming flood, this is not poetry. This is actually from the SREX report, from the Special Report on Extreme Events. What do we need to do? We need to reassess disaster risk management, how we invest our money. We need to take climate change into account. We've got to get over this peculiar American issue of denial. Somebody mentioned I've worked with 182 countries around the world. When I see the impacts of climate change, which this most recent report has only just been able to confirm with an exhaustive review of contemporary science, but we've been seeing it for decades, the impact on the poor and the vulnerable in rich countries, and especially on poor and vulnerable countries, on those who are most exposed. If you come from a small island state, is there anyone here from the Caribbean? Thank you. At least we have one. In the Caribbean, we're looking at 24 to 26 countries, including the United States and the wider Caribbean. Do you know how many of the airports in those countries will be underwater by 2050? Well, it's a majority. Can you imagine the impact on tourism, which is a major sector of the economy? Do those Caribbean countries create greenhouse gas emissions? Yes. What's the volume of greenhouse gas emissions compared to the rich industrial countries? It's minuscule. We need to take responsibility for climate change. It requires countries and people, so our policies and ourselves, what can we do individually, what can we do in our communities, to refresh our thinking. What I want to focus on today is thinking and decision making. We need to start thinking about what levels of risk are we willing and able to accept. Who's making the decisions? Risk for who? For us or for Kiribati in the Pacific that in 50 years will be underwater? What happens to their culture, to their language, to their history? That's only one of the countries that is facing this reality. The first president to bring this reality to his people is Janot from Kiribati. Okay, so why Games for a New Climate? Because games give us a way of active learning. They're also paperless, or they can be. Games don't give you the answers. You have to figure it out for yourself, and when you do, it feels great. So emotions matter. We're going to play a serious game, but it's going to be fun. When we give PowerPoint talks about climate science and even risk management, I can assure you that I put about half the people in the room to sleep. But with games, there are no back seats. We can also flatten hierarchies. Everybody's on personal recognizance. Your decisions matter. You're responsible for making your own decisions. Things are fast moving. The clock is ticking, so there's no sleeping either. We also learn from each other when we play games. There's this peer-to-peer collective intelligence that we start to generate together. We come away, I know that you know, we've got a shared understanding of how this game system works. So, we also learn from each other. If that system is designed well, we'll see how it relates to our own common reality, where our decisions need to depart from business as usual. So our collective intelligence, we hope when we play, is going to give us the confidence to act on our convictions. Games help us make meaning together. All right, some ground rules. Little pun, because we really experience the impacts of climate change primarily through water. But a game is a simplified representation of reality. No questioning of game rules. We can discuss that later. Your decisions are individual, but you're going to need to consult with your team. You're going to win or lose as teams. The goal is to avoid humanitarian disasters and to become more resilient. I'm calling this game, designed it for you today, To Row or Not to Row. It's a game about flood risk resilience, and you're going to play in rows as teams. So in a minute, I'm going to ask you, if you're alone in a row, to temporarily change your seat and join another row, to just fill in the rows. They're not all going to be equal, but that's the way it is in life. Who are you in this game? Well, you might be a local water department, municipal planner, from the Board of Health, maybe a disaster manager. You might be from a conservation commission. You might be a member of a citizen group. You might be a sustainability advisor, or you might even be a climate change expert. This game is participatory. I want you to expect confusion. You don't have those aha moments unless you're confused to begin with. You're not going to have much time either. We're going to have time pressure on you. All right, so we're going to form teams. Each team, we're going to say, represents a town. Each row is a team. You bring your own background, your own experience, your own ideas to make your decisions. How do you lose? If you act in vain or if you have a humanitarian crisis. How do you win? You have the most disaster managers still standing. This is our scenario to start. I want to bring it home to the United States. This map shows us the frequency of extreme storms from 1948 until 2011. So what can you tell me about this map? The black dots indicate an increase in the frequency of extreme storms. A small dot is 10% increase from 1948 until 2011. Medium-sized dot is a 50% increase, twice as many, 50% more. And a large dot is a 100% increase, so that means twice as many extreme events over that period of time. Now, it's a little harder to see the gray dots. The gray dots are a decrease in the frequency of extreme events. Okay, so a small one is 10% decrease, medium 50% decrease, and a large gray dot is a 100% increase. Now, storms, in terms of precipitation, what we're looking at is there's probably a pretty serious drought situation where you see that 100% decrease in the frequency of extreme events, less precipitation overall. But where you see the 100% increase in extreme events, that is going to be, in terms of precipitation, an extremely heightened flood risk. That's where you're at high risk of humanitarian disaster. Okay, did you notice anything on that map? Let me just go back for a sec. Anybody notice a trend here? This is the United States. Can you tell me, what do you see? Just speak out loudly. You got it. The Northeast, we're pretty much at the epicenter in this country of intensification of the hydrological cycle. Now, intensification of the hydrological cycle is probably the aspect of climate change upon which there is the most scientific consensus. It's what we understand the best about how we're going to be impacted by climate change. So we can use this science. What does it mean? It means we're going to have changes in weather patterns. We think about 4 seasons. We think about, April showers brings May flowers. Well, that may not be the case every single year. Spring may come in February. Spring may be delayed. We may have days of extreme warm weather in the middle of winter. We may have extreme cold weather in the middle of summer. Those are extremes. The extremes are one of the important stories about climate change. We talk about global warming, and that has its effect. The global temperatures are rising steadily, but at the same time, it's the frequency and the magnitude of extreme weather events which is beleaguering the vast majority of humanity outside of the United States, and that we can see is also our reality. This translates to an increase in disaster risk. What does extreme rainfall intensity mean? It means flooding. How many of us have experienced flooding in your own community here in Massachusetts within the last 2 or 3 years? I certainly have. Okay, I see probably about a third of the hands went up. So in this game, your responsibility is going to be municipal investment in disaster risk reduction. Some of the kinds of things you might be investing in for flood resilience would be floodplain restoration, so you can store more flood water. Also helps to recharge your aquifers. You need to be looking at water resources as a system, the whole catchment basin. If you've got water bodies, rivers, streams, well, that water doesn't stay in one place. It comes from somewhere and it goes somewhere. It passes through communities. We're going to have to learn how to cooperate better with each other, how to look at the whole hydrological system in order to manage it to reduce our risk. We got to be concerned with water supply, water quality. What happens when you've got flooding? Has anybody in this room, I don't want to scare you, but has anybody experienced sewage in the streets? Well, okay. Where are you from? Peru, thank you. Okay, I've had students in the Philippines who live in the outskirts of Manila. This is the biggest problem when they're flooded, that sewage washes through the house this high. Can you imagine the health impact? Cleaning up after that on a regular basis. We need healthy ecosystems, we need healthy social systems, we need good water quality, and we also need to protect ourselves. Okay, so let's say that all towns are now appointing their disaster risk management teams. Could those of you who are not in a row, in a team, please get up now and join a row with more players? Okay, now I'm going to tell you how you're going to play this game. It's actually very simple and it's going to be very fast moving. You are going to have a choice every year. We're going to play for 7 years or as long as we have time for. You're going to get to make one of 2 decisions with your investment budget. Each of you is responsible for a portion of your municipal budget. You can either invest in disaster preparedness. That means you are going to prepare in case there's a catastrophic flood this year. How do you do that? You're going to stand up with your hands over your head. You're going to inform the public. You're going to take preventive action. Your other choice is, maybe you think, we're not going to have a catastrophic flood every year. I'm going to invest my budget in researching my risk, doing that risk assessment, doing some planning, maybe do some training. We're going to build the capacity of our community to be more resilient over time. So those are your 2 choices. If you want to invest in building community capacity, you're going to stand up with your thumb up. Okay. Now, when you play this game, obviously, there are consequences to your investment decisions. We're going to find out what actually happens. I told you I could give you some scientific information. Now, you might think that this is a giant red die. Well, it's not. It's a probability distribution function for rainfall. Now, remember that scenario we talked about? So, the 1 is like a small gray dot. Very little rainfall, okay? A 2 is like the medium gray dot. The 3 is like a large gray dot. Can anybody tell me what the 4 is? I heard it. Small black dot. Great. So the 5 is a medium black dot. The 6 is the one we need to be concerned about. This is the large black dot. This is catastrophic flooding, extreme rainfall this year, okay? So this is the historical probability based on our scenario, based on scientific observations since 1948. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to confer with your team. Take a look up and down your row. You're going to devise a strategy together. You don't want to lose all your disaster managers in one fell swoop. So you're going to have to think about how you can manage risk for your community. To start the game, I'm going to ask everybody to stand up. What happens if there's a flood and you've got your thumb up? You get washed away. What if you protected yourself? You're okay. So you stay standing. If you didn't protect yourself and we roll a 6, you've got to sit down. We've lost confidence in your decision making, okay? And you stay sitting down. At the end of the game, it's going to be the town, the team, the row that has the most disaster managers still standing that wins the game, gets the prize. Now, I'll tell you how we're going to do this. When I roll the die, if it's anything other than a 6, so a 1 to a 5, it's basically manageable, good weather, manageable level of flooding. If you invested, you acted in vain. You don't have a catastrophe to contend with, but you went and you bought all those sandbags, maybe you negotiated with the duck tour to get a, amphibious vehicle to come evacuate, and you paid them a deposit, but nothing happened. You don't need to use it. So you're going to go and sit down. Okay. In the event that we roll a 6, what's the probability? Somebody tell me? 1 out of 6, thank you. So probably don't want to invest in it every single year when you can get much further ahead by doing all that research and planning, assessing your risk. But if you invested in building the resilience of your community, building that capacity up, and you get a flood and you're not protected, you're going to say, "Oh no," and sit down. Okay? I'm going to give you 2 minutes now, confer with your teams, and then we're going to roll this and find out what the actual weather is. Okay, you're going to have to make your decisions. Rains are coming. Thumbs out if you're going to invest in building capacity. Hands over your head if you're investing in disaster preparedness. Ready for the roll? Here we go. Let's see what we get. It's a 1. Okay. That means everyone who invested in disaster preparedness, you acted in vain, and guess what? Your community has lost confidence in you. Please sit down. You're fired. Those of you who invested in building community capacity, doing all that risk assessment, don't get too cocky. We got another year coming up. You're going to try to make a good decision here. You know what the probabilities are. Let's go. You don't have much time to decide. I'm only going to give you 30 seconds. Make your decisions. Get ready. Okay. Now, here come the rains. Let's see what we get. It's a 6. I did not rig this dice. Okay. So I guess you weren't expecting that. Okay. This is the reality for New England. I want to take us on a little trip around the world. I've been working in Mali in the last couple of weeks. In West Africa, anybody know about the ENSO, the Southern Oscillation, El Nino, La Nina? Well, that is something that our weather and climate science helps us understand. It is caused by warming of sea surface temperatures in the Pacific, but guess what? It has a very significant impact on weather in lots of parts of Africa. In Mali, they have a very strong correlation between El Nino and extreme rainfall. With that knowledge, they can prepare, not just to prepare for disaster, but it's an extremely arid country in the Sahel. In the next 20 to 50 years, they expect that up to 2/3 of this intensely agricultural country will no longer be able to support agriculture. So extreme rainfall is actually an opportunity. It's something they want to figure out how to better manage as an opportunity to store and save water, to help them to continue to manage the best agricultural production that they can with whatever water comes their way. So the probability of extreme rainfall in El Nino, we're going to say, I want you all to imagine now that you're West Africans. We can say that you're Malians. You live in the inland delta of the Niger River. Flooding can be extreme. It could be flooding further than from here to Boston, okay? So we're going to say it's now a 50% chance of flooding. If it lands on the curved side, protect yourselves from the rainfall, it's a flood. If it lands on the other side, it's good weather. It's not a problem, or it's drought. Okay, I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Make your decision. This is the information. This is the scientific information you have on probabilities. 50% chance of flood. What are you going to do? Okay. Made your decisions. Let's see what happens. We got good weather. So remember, this is an extremely poor country, less than $400 average income per year. If you invested in flood protection and you didn't get a flood, you've wasted your resources. Okay. We're going to stop our game now. Those who are still standing, the people who are still standing, the row with the most is going to get the prize here. So we've clearly got one row of people who made great decisions. Give them a nice hand, and I'm going to present each of you, if you'd like to come up, with a prize. I'm going to give you a copy of this book, Games for a New Climate. But I want to ask you a question. Why do you think you won?
We just took some chances, you know. We had some teamwork, talked about it, and yeah, that's why we won.
No.
Why'd you win? Because we're awesome.
We're awesome. Okay, crazy chances. Others, why do you think they won? Luck, I hear. A lot of it is luck. What was the difference between trying to make decisions as a New Englander and trying to make decisions as a West African? That's right. You have a better chance of coming out on top. I want to just talk about some quick takeaways for you. Climate change is a fundamentally ethical challenge. Our actions have consequences, and your actions, the ones that we talked about earlier with the ecological footprint, are meaningful, not just for yourself, but for other people. We're talking about challenges, but also opportunities. It's not all doom and gloom. We need to remember the principle of unity and diversity. We're one human family. Resilience to climate change. Remember, it's our challenge, but it's also our opportunity. All of our natural resources are one system. The principle of unity and diversity also applies in nature. And actually taking care of our planet, managing this ecosystem together to maintain its productivity, to support us, also to protect ourselves from the consequences of intensification of weather extremes means disaster risk management. Thank you.
He teaches philosophy, ethics, and environmental ethics. And today he will discuss the traditional conception of our place in nature and the effects this conception has and should have on the future of environmental movement. We could welcome him up, please.
I teach philosophy here, and so my presentation might be a little more abstract, a little more theoretical, but what I want to talk about is worldview, how we see ourselves in relationship to the environment, what is our place in nature, and so on and so forth. And anthropocentrism is the term we use to describe human-centeredness, that we think humans are the most important creatures or the only important beings in the entire universe. And of course, this led to a lot of problems, if I can remember what it was, that we know about. So we tend to view the world as our wastebasket, as our grocery store, as our playground, as whatever we want, and that has led to all of the ecological degradation and problems that we're here to discuss and try and figure out how to solve. Now, it's easy to sort of blame anthropocentrism for all of our problems because it's played such a large role in our problems. But I think that we shouldn't be so quick to judge. I think that anthropocentrism, while it has contributed to our problems, is not the enemy. And in fact, if we modify it, can be the solution. So what I'd like to do is to discuss some of the alternatives, some of the problems with the alternatives, and then show how anthropocentrism and human-centeredness actually isn't the boogeyman. Now, it's not just anthropocentrism. Of course, some of our problem comes from our traditional religious worldview, which itself is anthropocentric. But we tend to think that God has given us this world, He gave us dominion over it. God isn't even living in the world anymore. He no longer walks with Adam through the garden. He is in another dimension, and not behind Jupiter or in another galaxy. He's just not in this universe at all. So we can basically do whatever we want to this planet, this galaxy, and God is okay with it. And as long as God's okay with it, we're okay with it. So human-centeredness, traditional religious perspective, they have contributed to our problems. Okay, so what other options are there? What other worldviews are there? What other ethical outlooks or ways of articulating our view of the universe can there be? There's generally two, what we call animal liberationism and biocentrism. Now there's actually another, it's called holism, and that would give value to non-living things like mountains and rivers, but I've only got like 10 minutes, so I'm not going to get crazy. Animal liberationism basically states that all sentient life, or all animals, all sensing beings are valuable. And that sounds great. I know no one, well, maybe not no one, but many of us in this room are not fans of factory farming and so forth. And so that's one alternative, is we could extend the realm of ethical consideration to non-human animals. The other is biocentrism, which extends the realm of ethical consideration to all life, like trees, plants, bacteria, all that sort of thing. Okay, so what are some of the problems? We'll start with animal liberationism. Should we adopt this? Should we try and change society so that we start to view animals as deserving of equal consideration with humans? There are a couple of problems with that. First of all, we do cause animal suffering. Humans clearly make animals suffer. Animal experimentation, factory farming, we keep them as pets, we make them work the fields, we train them to entertain us, and so on and so forth. But for all the suffering that man causes, nature itself is far, far more vicious to animals. It's a jungle out there, for lack of a better phrase. And animals die horribly. How many calves or I don't know, tuna fry or anything, how many baby animals actually reach adulthood? Most of them are consumed. They die of predation, they die of starvation, they die of disease, and there's a lot of suffering out there in the world. So if we are truly concerned with ending animal suffering, why are we only concerned with the suffering of the animals that we know of, like cows and sheep and horses and so on and so forth? Shouldn't we be just as concerned with the suffering that a shark causes, or the suffering of a bison that freezes to death over a cold winter? Why aren't we stopping that? It seems that we're being willfully ignorant of a greater amount of suffering. And so if we try to adopt this animal liberation attitude, it will lead us down a path that we don't necessarily want to go down. What's the difference? I mean, human beings can be cruel and vicious, but even we don't eat something while it's still alive and kicking and screaming. I mean, there's probably children in the audience. Sorry about that, everyone. Wasn't really sure. Anyway, you know, lions eat zebras, and it's not humane, shall we say. Now, of course, they don't have to be humane because they're not humans, but to hold them to a different standard is to be anthropocentrist. So maybe we are anthropocentrist anyway. All right, maybe we should consider our own interests as primary, because do we really want to stop what's going on with that lion? We look at that, and it's terrifying, but also beautiful and natural. So if we're going to accept that, we can't accept, or we can't try and stop animal suffering. It's I don't say hypocritical, that's a hard word, but it is myopic. Okay. Another problem with animal liberationism is that we tend to only care about the animals that we like, domestic animals, our pets, our livestock. We only care about the cute animals, and we don't care about the ugly animals. And, right? I mean, isn't that how it works? Look at that thing. I mean, why is one more valuable than the other? In the big picture, a butterfly is just a cockroach with a cute outfit. I mean, right? So why should we care about one? And I mean, look, you all know this. Many of you have been called upon to kill rats. I have been called into the basement to kill many, many rats because I've lived in some pretty crappy apartments. And no one seems to care. They kill a rat, kill it because it's a disgusting creature. But if I drop kick one kitten into traffic, everybody loses their mind. Seems a little hypocritical to me. Now, of course, I don't drop kick kittens into traffic. A little joke there. But the point is that we only seem to care about the animals that please us, and that seems hypocritical. So, animal liberation doesn't seem to work because it leaves us either arbitrarily picking some animals over the others, or willfully indifferent to animal suffering. Okay, so that's one worldview that doesn't seem to be a legitimate alternative. What about biocentrism? What if we consider all life as equally valuable? Well, one of the unfortunate logical consequences of that is that we have to consider humans as being morally equivalent to animals or bacteria or what have you. And I'm not sure we're really ready to go there. I think when push comes to shove, we all think that humans are more important than animals, and there's some data to back that up. We spend more in this country on pet products than the entire GDP of Costa Rica. Which is, I mean, I don't know if that's evidence that we think that animals are more important or that we are willfully indifferent to the suffering of humans or what have you, but consider $300 million spent on pet costumes alone. Now think of all the human suffering that's out there and all of the suffering that we could alleviate with $300 million, but we don't seem to care that children don't have clean water to drink as long as our chihuahua looks like a green bean for Halloween. I mean, it's cute and all, but I don't know what this means. Does it mean that we are anthropocentric? Does it mean that there's something wrong with this, that maybe we shouldn't be spending so much money on pet toys and pet products and so forth? But it's out there, and later on I think I'm going to come back to that. Okay, so look, I'm not necessarily advocating researchsaves.org, but it's a great graphic, and the idea is when it comes down to it, most of us would sacrifice the interests of an animal or of a tree over a human, because we do, in fact, consider humans are more important, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think that anthropocentrism, again, is the enemy. I think the way it's been applied in the past is perhaps unfortunate, but I think we should really try to embrace it. Okay. Another problem with biocentrism is that if we truly consider ourselves as only one species among many, and there's people who believe that all of Earth is one organism or one, and it's true, we are one biosystem, and humans play a part, and bears play a part, and cockroaches and mosquitoes and all of it play a part in the ecosystem. But are we more important or just one cog in the machine? If we are one cog in the machine, then our artifacts, human activity, is just as natural as ants. A skyscraper is just like an anthill. And we are not allowed to then condemn human activity because it's just as natural as a shark. Why? If there is a shark that can swim faster and has sharper teeth and it can get big and fat and dominate the seas, we consider that an evolutionary advantage. But with humans, we consider it a moral failing. So we have to be fair. We have to consider either everyone equally, in which case we can't blame humans for their transgressions, if you will, or we have to place humans on a separate moral pedestal and then hold them accountable. So the problem with biocentrism is that it either debases humanity and treats it like just another animal or no more important than a bacterium, or it does not hold us accountable for our actions, and neither of those extremes seem to be acceptable. So what can anthropocentrism do for us? Well, first of all, it can hold humanity accountable. If we are morally separate, if we are the most important beings in the universe, then we do have certain responsibilities that we have to uphold. As we all know, with great power comes great responsibility. And to give humans the privileged place then obligates us to do something about the damage we cause. So number one, anthropocentrism will hold us accountable for our actions, and that's what we want. At least I believe that's what we want. Number two, anthropocentrism is a universally accepted value system. Everybody believes in anthropocentrism. Now, oh, that pen's gone. I don't want to commit the fallacy of the appeal to popular opinion. Obviously, I'm not saying that because everybody believes in it, then it's true. Otherwise, the Earth would actually be flat, and so on and so forth. But we want to make the world better. We want to do something about climate change. And in order to do that, we have to be practical. And if the entire world believes in something, and if the entire world is operating according to a certain value system, yes, we'd like to change that value system, but in the short term and the medium term, we have to get people to actually act, to actually get out there and do things. And if you appeal to people's biocentrism, they're not going to listen. If you appeal to animal liberationism, you'll get a few more people. But if you appeal to anthropocentrism, then you will get everybody. And that is the point. Because anthropocentrism is politically the most pragmatic approach. The people who make policy in the world are, by and large, anthropocentrists. Their constituents are anthropocentrists. And if we want them to change, we have to appeal to arguments that they will find convincing. And the only way we're going to do that is via anthropocentric arguments. Because we want results. We want to get things done. And unfortunately, that's the only way to do it. Well, I was going to say, unfortunately, we have to go through politicians to do that, which I guess is an old joke. But, I mean, that is the truth. So, anthropocentrism has been problematic. It has had its issues. And it's been a contributory factor to the problems that we see. But the alternatives are theoretically worse. Don't hold us accountable. They render us myopic, willfully ignorant, arbitrary. And in fact, anthropocentrism can be used for the greater good. We can use it. We can appeal to this value system. And I think that's the way we should do it. I think when we lobby people, when we call our congressmen, when we go out into the world and get signatures, we have to appeal to people's sense of their own importance, of their children's importance, of humanity's importance, because that's really the only thing that's going to motivate them. All right, that's it. So thank you very much. I hope it was quick and informative.
Now I'd like to introduce Professor Mendler, who's actually a professor here of English at North Shore Community College. He is part of the Green Team at North Shore Community College and teaches courses in writing, literature, and Native American Lit. He's also one of the advisors for the Environmental Club, And just to bring aware of, there is a table out back with Professor Rapucci, who, if anyone's interested to get involved, you can please see him afterwards. So I'm going to introduce Professor Mendondo.
I don't want you to be put off by terms like anthropocentrism and ecocentrism. These are, you know, really big words for ideas and concepts we can easily grasp, I think. And I think we're doing it already, whether we know it or not. But Fred and I are coming at this not so much from science and technology, which is what I think most of us are hoping will save us, but we're coming at it through the humanities. And we're coming at it through these ethical and philosophical traditions that are resources that we can draw upon, like we can draw upon science and technology. I actually believe that it will be more the humanities that will save us in the end. And I think it's the human heart and its ability to feel compassion and empathy, which has really eliminated all the ugly isms that these forums have talked about over the years, that needs to kind of rise here. Once we can make those connections, I think we're able to begin really solving this problem, which is a problem of values. But just to kind of summarize briefly for a minute, this might be easier like this. This is what ecocentrism is. It's about interrelatedness of ecosystems, key word, interrelatedness. It's about ecological egalitarianism and equality, and a mindset that brings that to daily life and actions, an appreciation of diversity and even the intrinsic values and rights of other living creatures, and as we extend this further out to the earth itself, earth rights to some degree. Humans are seen as part of a complex tapestry of interrelated life forms, not the end-all purpose, the center of creation. Human thinking and actions take into account consequences for the local environment, the earth, and other living creatures. Ecocentrism denotes a nature-centered system of values. So just kind of in a chart like this, egocentric, anthropocentric is kind of linked to an egocentric point of view. Man is at the top, obviously. And this is predominantly what's developed in Western civilization with the hierarchy and this kind of thing. In the egocentric view, human beings are part of that tapestry in that circle. And I want you to keep that idea of the circle in mind as we go forward. We have some great traditions to draw upon, and I'm going to kind of just bring out a few alternative perspectives and some of the philosophical backgrounds that we can kind of use as resources. Aldo Leopold, one of the great conservationists, environmentalists of the 20th century, and one of the great founders and developers of this concept of environmental ethics. He says, all ethics so far evolved rest upon a single premise, that the individual is a member of a community of interdependent parts. The land ethic simply enlarges the boundaries of the community to include soils, waters, plants, animals, and collectively the land. So it's enlarging our sense of community beyond our own concerns as human beings to expanding that out into the neighborhood, into the communities we live in, into the states and countries, and ultimately the planet we inhabit. That land as a community itself is a basic concept of ecology, but that land is to be loved and respected is an extension of ethics. And that's the point that I'm trying to bring out here more today. So in the anthropocentric model, you know, man is the kind of conqueror of nature, man against nature, this kind of thing. We've seen what that's led to. The conqueror role is eventually self-defeating. I think we're seeing that today in the consequences and the impacts of our actions, because it implicitly assumes that the conqueror knows just what makes the community clock tick, but the biotic mechanism is so complex that its workings may never be fully understood. And I think there are limits to our understanding and our control through technology and even science, which I truly believe in. And I think this is an argument a little bit against even a kinder, gentler anthropocentrism that maybe, you know, we're talking about too. The two are not necessarily opposed, obviously. There are two things that interest me, Leopold said, the relation of people to each other and the relation of people to land. Human justice issues are a big part of the environmental movement, Environmentalism and sustainability really is a moral idea, an ethical idea, as well as one that's connected to the sciences and ecology. So a thing is right, according to Leopold, when it tends to preserve the integrity, stability, and beauty of the biotic community. It is wrong when it tends otherwise. So that's a pretty simple, direct point. Now, we've got another wonderful person to draw wisdom from, and this is Thomas Berry, who labeled himself an eco-theologian or a geologian. He came up with the concept of the Ecozoic era. Leopold came up with the concept of the land ethic. But Ecozoic means the house of life. An Ecozoic society means a society of life, a society that thrives, that's living and healthy. The Ecozoic era is a time of mutually enhancing relationships among humans in the larger community of life. The great work, as he's designated this, is living the promise of the Ecozoic. Berry felt that the planet's environmental crisis is fundamentally a spiritual crisis with huge implications for religion and other philosophies. Here are some of the determining features of the Ecozoic era. Earth is a communion of subjects, not a collection of objects. The human is derivative, Earth is primary. A rising gross national product, for example, and a declining gross Earth product reveals the absurdity of our present economy. It should be clear to the medical profession, for example, that we cannot have healthy people on a sick planet. Progress to be valid must include the entire Earth and all its component aspects. To designate human plundering of the planet as progress is an unbearable distortion. New ethical principles must emerge which recognize absolute evils of biocide and geocide. So he was actually an ex-priest. He offers some other traditions, indigenous people, the wisdom of women, the classical tradition, and of course the wisdom of science as areas to draw upon. We have alternative perspectives in the human-earth relationship. One of these is ecofeminism. And the role of women in the environmental movement has been huge in sustainability. And I think we can make the obvious connections why, especially in the so-called third world countries. But briefly, ecofeminism is when feminists are bringing principles to the land and the environment and a kind of recognizing that there is an interconnectedness between the oppression of women throughout history and the oppression and destruction of the environment. And they kind of argue against patriarchal systems that predominate throughout the world and link those to the anthropomorphic model. Traditional knowledge is the Native American wisdom that we can draw upon, which is communal, it's oral, it's ancient, of course, and it's a wisdom that's grounded in place and a deep knowledge of place. It's grounded in stories. Indigenous people are endangered, like endangered species all over the planet, as the anthropomorphic Western style of civilization kind of bulldozes its way around the planet. Animism is one of those beliefs, to wrap up here. Animism is re-sacredizing nature to some degree, putting the spirit back into things, and seeing ourselves connected in these sacred relationships that sustain us. And again, this is all part of seeing ourselves in a world of relationships and interconnectedness, and not above it all, but part of it. Thanks.
Audubon Society. Her name is Lauren LaBarbara Swartz. She is the Mass Audubon Director of Climate Change with a focus on cross-cutting organizational and partner strategies in education, policy, and land conservation. She serves on the State Adaptation Subcommittee of the Global Warming Solutions Act Implementation Committee and its Green Infrastructure Working Group. A forest ecologist by training, Lauren has worked for 35 years in Massachusetts, national, and global conservation, and we're very pleased to have her here today. Thank you.
All right. Can you hear me? Yes, okay, great. I'm going to just launch right in, and I'm going to go pretty quickly because I have a lot to cover. First of all, I think this is a wonderful way to get together, and I love the idea of it being titled Sharing Responsibility because it does appeal to a human value that is really going to be needed when we, in fact, learn to be successful in approaching sustainability and climate change in particular. Just a word about Mass Audubon. If you haven't known about it, it is the largest conservation organization in New England, perhaps the Northeast, founded over 100 years ago. We've got over 100,000 members, actually. 27 staff nature centers across the state. Ipswich River is probably the closest to you all, and I encourage you to visit them. Urban, suburban, rural settings, and our mission is to protect the nature of Massachusetts. But in this age, protecting the nature of Massachusetts means we're protecting the livelihoods of people as well. I'm going to talk a little bit more about our Leading by Example initiative, which we started in the 1980s, which models sustainability for others to emulate. I would encourage you also to visit Mike O'Connor, who's at the back table, with our communications division, and he can fill in any blanks you might have about our organization. First of all, I do want to point out that there is no question, as you've heard earlier, climate change is happening, it's human caused, and we have to do something about it. In the Northeast, our assessment is just about to come out. We're expecting more heat, more irregular precipitation, greater storms, extreme weather, sea level rise that's unprecedented, perhaps a meter by the end of the century. So I may have started out as a plant ecologist, but I've quickly become very much involved in this topic because it is probably the biggest threat to our natural systems and to human systems as well. Okay, so I wanted to get back to our Leading by Example initiative. Since the 80s, really, we've embraced the idea that the climate is changing and have invested in some long-term sustainability initiatives across the organization. There's a list of things right behind me that tells you where we've invested heavily in reducing our impact on the Earth. Just for example, we've changed 2,500 light bulbs. We've swapped out 99 refrigerators. We've got a lot of buildings, a lot of facilities across the state, and we've taken a very proactive approach to figuring out how we can reduce our impact on the Earth. Changed all our air conditioners and computers so that they're less energy intensive. Had 30 audits of our buildings and implemented the highest recommendations for energy efficiency. Changed furnaces. We've changed our car fleet of 70 vehicles to being mostly Priuses, actually. So that is sort of the beginning of what we have done as an organization. Basically, it's resulted in the past 10 years of a 53% reduction in carbon emissions coming from Mass Audubon. It shows that long-term planning, even by a nonprofit organization that does not get tax credits for doing any of this, can be very much worthwhile. I want to just say a bit about our renewable energy generation. We get 35% of our electricity from our own green energy structures. We've got, I think, 32 PV arrays across the state at our facilities. We've actually decreased our dependence on oil 40% because of this increase in green energy generation. It's on-site generation, and we also, to make up the difference that we don't produce ourselves, are buying green energy. And anybody in this room can buy green energy on their energy bill, and I would encourage you to do so. That basically incentivizes green energy production in the state if you say you want to choose to buy green energy from your power supplier. Another thing that I would say is that in all of our sanctuaries where we have these green and sustainable features, we are intent on modeling how the public can use them as well, how the public can learn from them as well. So we have green trails and interpretive facilities, solar sculptures, that sort of thing. So we can introduce the topic of climate change to our visitors. Everything is sort of human-sized, house-sized, small scale, so it's not overwhelming. This is just an example of the green labels that we use at our visitor centers to show what is a sustainable feature so people can learn from those demonstrations. Now I'm just gonna, that's okay. I'm just gonna go through a few descriptions of our green buildings, our sanctuaries. Some of these may be familiar to you. This is Broadmoor Nature Center. This is sort of a summary of the sustainability features on this site. And there's a Boston Nature Center. Actually, Boston Nature Center also has geothermal. It has solar plus geothermal, and a number of other high efficiency features. Joppa Flats, which is not too far from here. Drumlin Farm Nature Center, which is also a sustainable organic farm, exhibits local community-based agriculture as well. So anyway, the green building principles that we have adopted as an organization and that we apply for all of our new buildings and all of our retrofitted buildings, of which we have quite a few. A lot of our buildings have been donated to us, and we try to use them for public use after making them more sustainably oriented. You need to do sustainable site development. You need to look at water savings. Certainly energy conservation is a big concern of ours. We want to put green energy in just about any site that we are involved in, and we are very careful about the materials that we select, local materials and not polluting materials if possible. I want to just spend a few minutes now, and I probably don't have too many, looking at our timekeeper, just to say how that's sort of our sustainability initiative. That's something we've been committed to for a long time. In the last couple of years, we've looked very proactively at the work that we do as an organization and have fine-tuned it to address climate change in a very proactive way. And I'm going to talk about the 3 areas in which we're involved. The first is advocacy. That's basically lobbying and political action. To understand this, you need to know the 2 sides. One is emissions reductions or mitigation, and the other is adaptation, preparing for a future of climate change, which is happening now. Massachusetts is a real model in terms of climate change legislation. We've got one of the best. California and Massachusetts lead the nation. So we feel that if we're successful here, we really can show how a geographic entity can tackle this problem, make it an economically viable solution. Our green careers are growing in this state. There's no reason why acknowledging climate change and dealing with it can't be a win-win situation for the state. So we are supporting the state in addressing emissions reduction, and the state is aiming to reduce emissions 80% by 2050, and they're on track to do so. What we would like to do more of is train attention on adaptation, because that's where we do not have measurable targets yet in the state. As you know, Sandy waked us all up to that. As you might not know, New York is investing something like $13 billion in adaptation. We're investing maybe $56 million in Massachusetts. So we have to wake up and do something more. Mass Audubon actually has just introduced legislation with some co-sponsors on Beacon Hill to do statewide adaptation planning, which would help us catch up. The governor supports our work. And we have developed a coalition to help pass that legislation, get the funding that's needed to address this problem in Massachusetts. A lot of what we talk about in terms of adaptation is called nature-based adaptation or green infrastructure. If you look at adaptation proactively on the front end, there are nature-based solutions that you can use existing natural features to help protect us in climate change. I'm going to speed along here. Second strategy is education. And this is an important one, I think, for you all, because basically there have been studies that have shown in Massachusetts that while the state is doing a great job we need people at the ground level to really change their behavior and to support these policies. And so far that hasn't happened. There's been a lot of leadership by Governor Patrick. He's leaving. We really need to keep this moving by having people embrace it. There we go. To reach the 80% goal, we need people. I'm going to skip that one. It basically says that if a lot of people who are disposed to doing something about climate change do visit our sanctuary. So we have basically educated all of our educators, 80 full-time educators, to introduce climate change and sustainable living to the people that come to our sanctuaries. That's 500,000 people a year. Introduce the topic through their value systems and move them from just me, individual action, to community action, because that's where the rubber meets the road. Finally, in terms of education, we want to reach the next generation and working hard to change public school standards to include sustainability and climate science. So the kids, your generation, we're all depending on you, really embrace and understand what's at stake and can plan your futures to address it. I mean, there's engineering and green careers and that sort of thing are a very hopeful way to address climate change. And I think I'll stop there. Oh, one more thing. I did want to just call attention to this book. We rely very heavily on the science provided by the Union of Concerned Scientists. I would urge you to go on their website and take a look at what they have to offer. This book will say what the highest impact things that you can do as an individual are. Not 100 things, it's basically 10 things, and it's a wonderful way to sort of proactively start to address your own impact on the environment. Pardon me? Oh, I'm sorry. The slide, I didn't get to that slide. It's called Cooler, Smarter. Cooler, Smarter. It's published by Island Press. It's excellent. Thank you.
Teacher here at North Shore, Barbara Iccolini. She is the Green Initiatives Coordinator at North Shore Community College, where she also teaches courses in the environmental science.
Well, good morning. There was real wisdom to putting this program together, and I didn't really appreciate it until I heard everyone go in turn and realized that my speech or my presentation is following on the heels of a perfect setup. So I was asked to do two things. This panel is to talk about the challenges of change. And so I think you've been hearing this morning about climate change. You've been hearing about the realities of the science and the data behind it. But there's the final piece of this, which is how do we change society so that we really address these issues in a timely manner? So my piece of this is to tell you what the college has been doing and to suggest ways that we can reach our goals in the future. So North Shore is working, and this is our mission for sustainability, towards a socially just, environmentally sound, and economically viable future by implementing tenets of sustainability through our classes, our teaching, through our student-led activities, and through facilities management and public partnerships. And you'll see in a minute where that definition came from. But first, I just want to say that the college is committed to our students. And so we really want our students to be prepared to live sustainably into the 21st century as responsible climate and civic literate citizens. That's a tongueful, but really what we're saying is that through the education the students are receiving at this college, we hope that they'll put that education to work, that they'll be so well informed that they'll turn out to be citizens who want to be activists, who want to get involved, who want to be part of making public policy and implementing it. So our definition in our mission statement comes from the sustainability circles. And many of you have seen this before, I'm sure, but where the circles overlap is by definition sustainability. So the things that are socially desirable, the things that are ecologically viable, and then economically feasible, where those overlap in the middle, by definition, is a sustainable solution into the future. And I can't help, being a teacher, from throwing in a few slides on climate change, so bear with me, just 2 slides. But these come from the NOAA organization, which is really foremost in the world. NOAA and the Meteorological Society and the National Weather Service have combined forces to give us really the best data that the world has on climate change. And from this graph, you can see that really atmospheric carbon dioxide has increased dramatically in just the last 50 years. So from the Industrial Revolution, when we started emitting fossil fuels, through until just our lifetime, 50 years now, it has increased so dramatically that there's never been a time in human history when CO2 levels are as high as they are now. The correlation between carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere and increasing global temperature cannot be denied. According to NOAA, there's a 98% agreement among scientists around the world that these two are linked and that there's a direct correlation. So global temperatures now are at least a full degree Fahrenheit warmer than they've been at any time in the past. In fact, the last time CO2 levels changed as much as they are now, and we know this from ice core sampling going back many hundreds of years, thousands of years actually, the woolly mammoth disappeared. We all know what happened to him. So the moral to the story is we have to take our emissions, our anthropogenic, and now you've heard the definition of that several times this morning, our man-made emissions to heart. We have to lower them, and we have to do it quickly. So what does the college have to do with all this? What's our role in it in a worldview? Well, in 2007, President Burton signed the ACUPSI Agreement, and that's the American College and University President's Climate Commitment. It recognizes that institutions of higher ed have a really unique role in society to train people in all aspects of the social, economic, and environmental solutions that will reverse climate change going into the future. In other words, we have a special place in society to educate on these issues in an effective manner. So what have we done? Well, sorry, went too fast. We have eliminated our own greenhouse gas. We haven't eliminated, we've lowered our greenhouse gases. We've had energy audits. We've implemented changes in all of our buildings. We've done the obvious things that are good for the pocketbook. We have changed out light bulbs. We've increased energy efficiencies. And we report on this on an annual basis. So the college is held accountable to the larger world on what we're doing every year. The second thing we did is in 2012, we signed SEED. And SEED is Sustainability Education and Economic Development, and it's an organization specifically geared to community colleges. And the more important aspect of this is that it recognizes our role to educate students and to raise up a new generation of leaders that will promote a green economy. And I think that word is really key here. It's not just about saying, well, when the green jobs come, our students will be ready for them. It's about saying that we as a college have to promote green jobs. So it's more than just educating, it's actually being active in our local region and community to promote the green economy. That's a very key piece to all of this. I couldn't help but throw in one more slide from a moral and social philosopher. Here we go. So in time of change, the learners are going to inherit the church, while the learned find themselves beautifully equipped to deal with a world that no longer exists. In other words, we can't rest on our laurels. We have to keep pushing the envelope forward. We have to keep learning new things and adapting. So I'll just go through quickly. One of our finest pieces was building and being involved in building a zero net energy building. And for those of you here on the Lynn campus, you may not actually have seen this building. I encourage you to come up. I'm happy to give tours at any time. But this is the first state-owned zero net energy building. It's absolutely magnificent. There were some problems with it when it was first built, but those have been resolved and now it's operating much more efficiently. Zero net energy simply means the building generates as much energy as it uses. And in our case, the building now is actually able to generate a little more electricity from our photovoltaics that actually offsets the cost of the other two buildings on the campus when they're operating. I won't go through all the features in interest of time, but that building has achieved, it's been given a gold LEED designation. That's really notable. The only higher one would be platinum. So please do come and see it. A lot of natural day lighting, so we don't have to have artificial lighting. It's just really a beautiful building. So again, I'll go through these quickly. The photovoltaic panels you can see jutting up to the heavens. The building was oriented to maximize exposure to the sun. Geothermal is under the parking lot, so this is a diagram of geothermal, but those are wells that heat and cool the building by groundwater, which comes in at a steady 52 degrees Fahrenheit, so it only has to be bumped up to 72 as opposed from below freezing. We have a green roof on the building, and again, another very pretty feature, but it also helps to offset heating costs in the winter and cooling costs in the summer. And then just in February of this year, we dedicated the Student Sustainability Lounge. So again, I hope you're seeing that our emphasis here is truly on the students, that we appreciate them and know that they're inheriting problems of the past that they were not part of, but they will be part of the solution. Faculty from the past have also used the Zero Net Energy building as a learning laboratory, bringing George Walsh brought his engineering students there to tour and to look at energy monitoring. We hope to do more of that in the future, integrating the building and aspects of the data that it's generating into our teaching. Speaking of teaching, the Green Curriculum Project, you've heard from Joe Modugno this morning, and Greg Rapusi in the back of the room there are co-chairs of this project. It's been a tremendous success. So 44 faculty representing 22 departments of the college to date have all greened up their courses, either by offering new courses or by putting a green thread through existing courses. And that's really commendable. We hope at one day in the not too distant future to have 100% participation so that every faculty knows how they tie into sustainability. The Environmental Studies program, we ended up having a new program approved by the Board of Higher Ed 3 years ago, I guess now. It's a wonderful interdisciplinary program with 2 tracks. Again, it does make the college be a leader in some of the areas of teaching sustainability. We also ended up revising the horticulture program to be an environmental horticulture program and moved it to Lynn. So this is now a Lynn-based program, which we hope at one time in the not too distant future will tie in with culinary. So we'll have farm-to-table training. And we've done a lot of community outreach, because the other piece of education isn't just to ourselves, to our students and faculty and staff, but it's to the families and in the regions for which we are responsible. And then finally, you're going to hear again right after me from a student talking about the Environmental Club. This is a way students can be active during their years here. They've done a lot of fun outings together, moonlight canoe trips and the like. I'll let Jessica tell you more about that. And last summer, we also implemented the North Shore Community Garden at Alfalfa Farm. That was a lot of fun. It was a success. We brought the produce at the end of the season to our Fall Fest and gave it away. We received some voluntary donations for it, which will cover the costs of seeds and plants for this year. So again, this year we're going to expand it a little bit in that we hope to offer a CSA drop-off pickup location also at Alfalfa Farm for members of the community who would like to be participating in supporting locally grown agriculture. I just want to end with one final thought from Margaret Mead, who said, "Never doubt a small group of thoughtful and concerned citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." So that's our hope for all of our students and for our faculty, staff, and all the families that we ripple out to, is that we will all take this seriously and become involved and certainly informed voters. Thanks very much.
Now I'm going to introduce Jessica Aviles, who's a student at North Shore Community College, and she's actually part of the environmental club. Jessica, could you please come up?
There's only one thing that freaks me out more than climate change, and that is public speaking, so please bear with me. I'd like to just start off by quickly expressing my gratitude to be able to be here to represent the Environmental Club. As we all know, the issues that we are presented with regarding climate change are incredibly daunting. This is a formidable issue that requires collaborative, immediate attention, and it is easy to get overwhelmed with the magnitude of it all, especially when we consider gridlock in Washington and what seems to be the inability for people to move from an egocentric perspective to an ecocentric mentality. One of the things that I have learned, though, is that we can all make a difference, and individual and grassroots efforts can be incredibly effective and fulfilling. For me, the Environmental Studies program and my involvement with the Environmental Club has fostered not only a desire to become involved, but a need for it as well. It is truly a heartening experience to come together with like-minded individuals to ask ourselves, how can we help? What can we do? So the Environmental Club is a great way for students to get involved. It's a place where students can discuss issues relating to the environment and how they can help solve them. The club meets bi-weekly in an informal, friendly, and moderated environment where you can hear the ideas of some of your most thoughtful peers on subjects ranging from politics, science, activism, environmental philosophy, and anything else relevant to environmentalism. The Environmental Club is committed to fulfilling our duty as inhabitants of this planet to work towards a more sustainable lifestyle. We examine ideas about how we can make a difference in theory and in practice through multiple strategies such as art, literature, film, politics, and activism. Now, I know that a lot of students here at North Shore Community College are busy individuals. We all have jobs, families, relationships, and outside commitments that require a lot of our time. Excuse me. In spite of this, though, the club has still been able to participate and attend a number of events that have been both educational and gratifying. So I've just put together a quick little slideshow of some of these events. The first slide here is a picture of a guided naturalist walk. Learning about ecosystems in your own backyard is an important component in educating ourselves to the needs of our environment. Promoting awareness is also a great way to become involved. Education through film is another important tool utilized by the environmental movement. And this event was a particularly successful event. It was a full moon canoe trip at the Ipswich River Wildlife Sanctuary. Here again, students were able to spend some time in nature. And another thing that the club has done is join forces with other organizations on campus, such as MassPIRG, to support updating the bottle bill recycling program. We also attended the opening of the Sustainability Lounge earlier in the year, located in the Zero Net Energy building in the Danvers campus. And this Saturday, we will also be attending the cleanup of Lynn Woods from 8:30 to 1 p.m. And this event is another great way for, excuse me, my goodness, to do your part and give back. If anybody is interested in joining the club, there are a number of ways to do so. Professor Modugno and Rapucci are the club advisors, and you can also visit the Facebook page for updates on meeting times. The Facebook page is also a great avenue for sharing interesting pictures, articles, and upcoming events. This is especially useful for those of us with busy schedules. I have found that eco-minded individuals are more than willing to donate time and energy because of a deep-rooted understanding of the imperative nature of our cause. There is a real ethical and moral correlation between environmental and social injustice. Civic engagement is a huge component of the environmentalist movement, and some of the great activists of our time developed their skills by becoming involved in clubs at their college. I have learned some great tips on how I can do my part by meeting people who wish to share the earth responsibly. On behalf of the club, I thank you very much.
My name is Carlos Mario Marin Marin. I'm an assistant professor in the behavioral science department here. So the last part of this program is what you could do. So there's a number of students who are prepared to tell you what you could do, like how each individual could make a difference.
I've been at North Shore Community College for 4 semesters, and Professor Marin's my first teacher who had us go paperless with our papers. When he told us that, I wanted to drop the class because I had never had a paper that was a class that had no papers in my folder. But I've learned to overcome that, and also I have started to shop with a cloth bag instead of the 32 plastic bags that were in my cabinets this morning when I counted them. So here, this is for somebody. Use paper, use cloth.
So to help the earth, you guys can replace a regular incandescent light bulb with a compact fluorescent light bulb, install programmable thermostat, clean or replace filters on your furnace and air conditioner.
So another thing you could do is defrost your old fridges and freezers regularly. What's even better is to replace them with newer models. They have automatic defrosters in them, and they're 2 times more effective than their predecessors. And you can also encourage the switch to renewable energy. Successfully combating global warming requires a national transition to renewable energy sources such as solar, wind, and biomass. These technologies are ready to be developed more widely and regularly barriers impeding them. Take action to break down those barriers.
My name is George Pena, and I'd like to state that one of the cool things that I seen going to my brother's house is choosing to use efficient say appliances and stuff, even though it may seem like out of the ordinary, like he has this really weird toilet, but somehow it tends to, use less, 50% less water, and it's all these buttons and stuff. So I think that's pretty cool. So when shopping for appliances, try to find some that are efficient and using less energy, less electricity, water, so on and so forth. Another great idea from which comes to mind is, say you're leaving your home. A lot of people tend to leave a certain light on, or a light over the oven, or maybe a night light and stuff like that, or putting your TV on standby. That actually, on standby, people think that it's not using that much energy. Yes, it's maybe using 40% instead of the full 100%, but that's still consuming energy and still bringing up your light bill and stuff like that. So that'd also be pretty cool. To cut down from that. Let's see. You good? What else do we have here? Wow, I know I'm a little nervous. Sorry. But yeah, just small tips of the trade, and I'll just hand it off to the next person. Thank you very much.
My name is Tanisha Garner. It says, wrap your water heater in an insulation blanket. You'll save 1,000 pounds of carbon dioxide a year with this simple action. You can save another 550 pounds per year by setting the thermostat no higher than 50 degrees Celsius.
My name is Mohammed. I don't have much to say. How about if we plant one tree?
Okay, so get a home energy audit. Many utilities offer free home energy audits to find where your home is poorly insulated or energy inefficient. You can save up to 30% off your energy bill and 1,000 pounds of carbon dioxide a year.
Cover your pots while cooking. Doing so can save a lot of energy needed for preparing the dish. Even better are pressure cookers and steamers. They save around 70%.
My name is Nathan Thompson. I'm a student here at North Shore. One of the many things you can do is to only use the washing machine or dishwasher when it's full. There's no need to jump ahead and do only a few dishes or a small load of laundry when you can save a lot more by doing it when it's full. Thanks.
My name's Santia. Take a shower instead of a bath. A shower takes up to 4 times less energy than a bath. To maximize the energy saving, avoid power, shower, and use low-flow shower head, which are cheap and provides the same comfort.
Number 16, it says to use less hot water. And by using less hot water, you could also save electricity that way too. And you can also replace shower heads. You could also install low-flow shower heads too. Number 17 says the 17th thing you could use is use a clothesline instead of a dryer whenever possible. You can save 700 pounds of carbon dioxide when you air dry your clothes for 6 months out of the year. And you can also save electricity and lower your electricity light bill if you turn off all appliances and unplug anything that is plugged in.
Insulate and weatherize your home. Properly insulating your walls and ceilings can save 25% of your home heating bill and 2,000 pounds of carbon dioxide a year. Caulking and weather stripping can save another 1,700 pounds per year.
Hi, I'm Matt. Number 20 says recycle your organic waste, and around 3% of the greenhouse gas emissions through the methane is released by decomposing biodegradable waste by recycling organic waste or composting. You have a garden, you can help you eliminate this problem. Just make sure that your compost that you compost it properly so it decomposes with sufficient oxygen. Otherwise, your compost will cause methane emissions and smell foul.
I didn't give you guys my name earlier. It's Mie. Choose your products that come with little packaging and buy refills when you can.
Reduce waste.
You can plant a tree.
You can switch to green power.
You can buy locally grown and produced foods.
Buy fresh foods instead of frozen.
We are going to seek out and support local farmers markets.
Buy organic foods as much as possible.
Eat less meat.
Come to say the weather's starting to come out pretty nice. I'm enjoying today's weather. It's a little bit windy. I tend to, not carpool a lot. I'm used to just, driving myself. But today I decided to take a walk instead of driving to school. So.
Reduce the number of miles you drive by walking, biking, carpooling, or taking mass transit wherever possible.
Start a carpool with your coworkers or classmates.
Keep your car tuned up.
Important. Drive carefully and do not waste fuel.
Check your tires weekly to make sure that they are properly inflated. When it is time for a new car, choose a more fuel-efficient vehicle. Try car sharing.
Try telecommuting from home. Also, fly less.
Encourage your school or business to reduce emissions. And join the virtual march.
Encourage the switch to renewable energy.
Protect and conserve forests worldwide. Forests play a critical role in global warming. They store carbon. When forests are burned or cut down, their stored carbon is released into the atmosphere. Deforestation now accounts for 20% of CO2 emissions each year. Conservation International has more information on forests and global warming. And you can also be like UPS and not take left turns because it uses a lot of gas.
Make your city cool. Tell Congress to act. Make sure your voice is heard.
Spread the word, spread the word, spread the word!
Okay, I'd like to thank everybody and thank you students, just in case anyone with the students that participated are all green curriculum students, which is very important because it shows the effect it's having on all of us. I'd like to now welcome Mr. Sheldon Brown.
several years, the Tolerance Committee forms has been searching for a new chair to replace me after retirement. We found the next chair when I overheard her say that the Forums on Tolerance is about the best feature of the college. She is Dr. Lori Carlson, Professor of English. She will work on future forums with superb leadership of the forums who are listed on the back of your blue brochure. I personally wish Lori every success as the new chair of the forums. Lori?
Well, thank you all for coming here today. Clearly, I have very big shoes to fill. But if you look inside your program for today, you'll see that our next forum in October is not unrelated to today, because issues of homelessness are very related to issues of sustainability. So please look for the next Forum of Tolerance. It'll be on October 23rd, 2014, back here in the Lynn Gymnasium with the topic being homelessness. Thank you very much.